Your wife of 5 years is gone. She wasn't sick. There was no time to prepare or say goodbye. She was killed in a random senseless act of violence at a shopping mall. Your world has been shattered, and now you're left to sort through the pieces of the life you once shared. In a box of her old work things, you find something that doesn't belong. A receipt from a cheap motel in a town you've never heard of, from a weekend she was supposed to be at a work conference. The immediate, sickening fear is betrayal. Maybe it was an affair, a secret life you never suspected. The truth, however, is infinitely worse. Your wife wasn't a cheater. She was a hunter. For years, she had been secretly investigating a string of unsolved murders, hunting a serial killer who had vanished without a trace. And now, her hunt has become yours. This is the devastating setup for Ronald Malfi's Come With Me. And while this sounds like the beginning of a standard thriller, Malfi uses this framework to ask a much deeper set of questions. What is the proper way to mourn? Is it to let the dead rest? Or is it to pick up their weapon and finish their fight? It's this intense focus on the psychology of loss that elevates the novel, placing it at the crossroads of Stephen King's intimate character work and the obsessive true crime of Michelle McNamara's I'll Be Gone in the Dark. This isn't just a mystery about who killed a string of women. It's a mystery about the person you thought you knew and the ghosts they left behind. The foundation of Aaron Decker's story is built on the unique horror of modern arbitrary violence. His wife Allison isn't taken by a specific monster or a targeted villain. She's a random number in a mass shooting. Malfi spends real time in the immediate aftermath of this, forcing the reader to sit in the suffocating silence that follows. There's no grand conspiracy to uncover, no mastermind to hunt. There's only a profound gaping void where a person used to be. It's a loss without reason, and therefore it's a grief without a clear path to closure. The house becomes a museum to a life that ended mid-sentence. It's in this fog of loss, while sorting through the artifacts of his wife's career as a reporter, that Aaron's grief is suddenly complicated. The discovery of that motel receipt is a second sharper trauma. It's one thing to lose the person you love. It's another thing entirely to lose the idea of them you held so dear. This single piece of paper asks 1,000 terrible questions. It's a thread that, once pulled, threatens to unravel the entire tapestry of his marriage. It offers the possibility of a different kind of answer. Not for why she died, but who she truly was. And so Aaron faces a choice. He can drown in the quiet, senseless grief he's been handed, or he can follow his wife's ghost down a rabbit hole that promises answer, at the risk of total annihilation. So Aaron makes his choice. But before we follow him down the rabbit hole of the central mystery, we need to understand the world he now inhabits, the suffocating architecture of his grief. Malfi builds this world with 3 distinct and powerful tools. First, and most importantly, is his masterstroke narrative choice. The entire novel is written in the second person, as if Aaron is speaking directly to his dead wife. This isn't a gimmick. It's the key that unlocks the book's emotional core. It creates a suffocating, almost unbearable intimacy. We, the reader, become unwilling eavesdroppers on the most private conversations a person can have, the one with someone who can no longer answer. We aren't just being told a story about a grieving man. We're trapped inside the echo chamber of his loss, hearing his thoughts as he speaks them directly to her ghost. This intimate narration blurs the line between memory and reality, and that's where the haunting truly begins. The book is filled with classic supernatural tropes. Lights turning on by themselves, whispers from a smart speaker, the chilling certainty of a presence in an empty room. But Malfi, he refuses to give us an easy answer. The question is never simply, is this house haunted? It's, is Aaron haunted? Malfi is transcribing a very real psychological phenomenon known as complicated grief, where the bereaved person's mind creates tangible sensory experiences of their lost loved one. He uses the language of ghost stories to articulate a profound human truth. that a great loss can literally haunt you, blurring the line between what is real and what is memory. Finally, this internal storm is perfectly mirrored by the world outside. The setting itself is a character, and it's in mourning. Malfi's Maryland is not idyllic. It's suffocating. It's the oppressive, sticky humidity of a summer that makes it hard to breathe. As Aaron's investigation takes him to other towns, he finds the same decay. The Rust Belt communities with shuttered factories and faded facades. The environment is not a passive backdrop. It's an active reflection of Aaron's internal state. The entire world feels trapped in a state of stagnant, humid decay, just like him. It's through these layers, this intimate voice, this ambiguous haunting, and this suffocating world, that Malfi builds something far more terrifying than a simple monster story. He's building an authentic portrait of a shattered mind. Aaron isn't allowed to simply sit in the suffocating architecture of his grief. His wife left him a mission. And to even begin that mission, he must first accept a devastating truth. The woman he thought he married didn't exist. This is where Come With Me pivots to explore one of the most intimate and terrifying human fears. The idea that we can never truly know another person, not even the ones we love most. Aaron's image of Allison was of a kind, compassionate newspaper reporter who wrote inspirational stories about teenage girls. He loved a woman who he believed lived her life in the light. The discovery of her secret investigation doesn't just add a new chapter to her life. It forces a rewrite of the entire book. He learns that his wife was not just a reporter, she was a warrior, a relentless hunter defined by a secret trauma and a hidden obsession that predated their entire relationship. Malfi taps into the terrifying idea that there's no end to what we don't know about a person, even the one who sleeps next to us. Structurally, this reveal is brilliant because it creates a dual narrative. As Aaron investigates in the present day, he's simultaneously uncovering Allison's investigation from the past. He follows the ghost of her footsteps, visiting the same rundown motels, interviewing the same wary law enforcement officers, and staring at the same dark bodies of water. He is, in effect, reliving a shadow version of her secret life. This narrative structure does two crucial things. First, it keeps Allison powerfully alive as an active character whose intelligence drives the plot from beyond the grave. And second, it deepens the tragedy. With every clue Aaron uncovers about the murders, he also uncovers another piece of his life that was kept from him, compounding this sense of loss. He's not just solving a crime. He's being forced to reevaluate every single memory he has of their life together, now tainted with the shadow of what was hidden. The central conflict of the book isn't just man versus killer. It's man versus the memory of his own marriage. The investigation itself begins to transform him. It pushes him out of the passive realm of personal grief and into the active, dangerous world of true crime. Aaron's not a detective. He's a Japanese translator. He becomes a citizen detective, which is an archetype that has gained immense cultural power in recent years. And it's impossible to discuss this aspect of the novel without talking about its most profound real-world parallel, Michelle McNamara's seminal work, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Like McNamara's hunt for the Golden State Killer, Aaron's quest is a self-funded, unsanctioned obsession. It's a journey into cold case files, late-night phone calls with retired cops, and long, lonely drives to dark places. Both are fueled by a desperate need to give names to the forgotten and a voice to the silenced. Come With Me serves as a stunning fictional exploration of the immense psychological weight of this work. A weight that McNamara documented so powerfully in her own life before it was tragically cut short. This deep dive into investigative procedure is what leads many readers to ask the central genre question. Is this really a horror novel? Or is it a thriller? The answer is that it's a horror novel wearing a thriller's trench coat. A thriller is often about the forward momentum of the plot, preventing the next crime and catching the killer before they can strike again. But the true horror in Come With Me is not about what the killer will do next. It's about what the investigation is doing to Aaron's soul. The plot mechanics, the clues, the interviews, the procedural elements are the engine of a thriller. But the fuel is pure horror. The dread of existential loneliness, the terror of a lost identity, and the slow grinding process of psychological disintegration. This brings us to the core of his journey: obsession. On one hand, the hunt for the truth gives Aaron a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It provides structure in the absolute chaos of his new life. In that sense, it's a coping mechanism, a way to channel his grief into action. But it also becomes a wall he builds between himself and the devastating reality of his loss. He's so focused on Allison's past that he's unable to move on with his own future. Malfi never gives an easy answer as to whether Aaron's quest is a noble mission of healing or a destructive, all-consuming fixation. The truth, as is often the case, is that it's terrifyingly both at the same time. So where does that leave us with Come With Me? What's the final verdict? Ultimately, this is a novel that succeeds because it respects its reader's intelligence. It trusts you appreciate a story that prioritizes emotional authenticity over cheap thrills. It's a mature, haunting, and deeply human book. My only minor critique, and what holds it back from absolute perfection, is that a few of the investigative interviews in the second act can begin to feel slightly formulaic. There's a brief stretch where the pattern of Aaron travels to a new town, interviews a new contact, it becomes noticeable, long before the narrative accelerates into the absolutely devastating final third. But that's a small price to pay for what this book achieves, and my recommendation is unequivocal. If you're a horror fan who loves the deep emotional character work of Stephen King's more meditative novels, you need to read this. If you're a true crime aficionado who is captivated by the obsessive personal journey in a book like I'll Be Gone in the Dark, you need to read this. Ronald Malfi's Come With Me is a modern classic of the genre, and maybe my favorite of his so far. And with that, the spoiler-free portion of this video is over. If you've not read Come With Me, I strongly encourage you to click away now, go read it, and then come back. I'll be discussing every major twist, including the ending, in detail. So, for those of you still here, let's open the box. First, let's talk about the killer. It isn't some unknowable phantom, but a man named Carl, broken by his past. Malfi makes a crucial choice here. Carl's perverse obsession with purity isn't just a product of religious fanaticism. It's revealed to be rooted in physiological cause. Specifically, it's from a chemical contamination from a factory in his hometown that poisoned the residents, leading to neurological damage that's kind of just systemic. This elevates him from a simple monster to a tragic figure. He is both a perpetuator of immense evil and, in a way, a victim of corporate negligence and a poisoned environment. This doesn't excuse his actions, but it complicates them, forcing us to see the horrors as a symptom of a sick society, not just a sick man. Next, we need to discuss Allison's final days. The revelation that she went to Carl's motel to confront him herself just before she was killed at a mall, it's breathtaking. It reframes her entire character. On one hand, it's an act of almost unbelievable bravery, facing her sister's killer alone, armed with nothing but her research. But on the other hand, it's a profoundly reckless decision made by a reporter, not a trained officer, and she left her husband completely unaware of the danger she was in. Malfi presents this without judgment, leaving us to grapple with the fierce, dangerous, and solitary nature of her obsession. This leads directly to Aaron's own moral point of no return. The climax in the motel room where he finally confronts Carl is one of the most chilling scenes in the book, precisely because it's not a triumphant moment of heroism. Carl is unarmed, pathetic, and beaten. Aaron has him on his knees, and when Aaron kills him, it's not an act of self-defense. It's a cold, calculated execution. This is the ultimate consequence of his journey. The gentle, grieving translator we met at the beginning has been transformed by the investigation into a killer himself. The book forces us to sit in the deep discomfort of this act, questioning whether this is justice or just a different kind of monstrosity. And finally, that ending. Just when we think Aaron has found some semblance of peace, Carl's wife, Cassie, appears at his home and shoots him. On one level, it's devastatingly bleak. It suggests that violence is a virus, and that Aaron's act of vengeance has only perpetuated that cycle, creating yet another victim. It's an emotional gut punch. But then Malfi layers in the supernatural. Aaron's dying moments are not of pain and fear, but of peace. He sees Allison, he feels her presence, and he hears her voice finally clearly say the words, "Come with me." This single line recontextualizes the entire novel. Was the haunting real all along? Was Allison's ghost not just guiding him to find a killer, but guiding him to a fate that would allow them to be reunited in death? We're never certain. And because of it, we're left with an impossible haunting question. Is this a story about the inescapable tragedy of violence? Or is it a dark but strangely beautiful ghost story about a love so powerful it literally transcends the grave? The fact that it can be both is a mark of great writing. That final haunting ambiguity is something I still wrestle with. And it's what makes this book so unforgettable. I wasn't able to put all the pieces together until I talked it out with my wife. And even then, it lingered and demanded to be re-examined. And now I want to turn it over to you. For those of you who have read it and stuck around for this deep dive, I genuinely want to know what you think. Also, thank you for sticking around for this deep dive. I know it's a long one. Drop a comment below and tell me, how did you interpret that final page? Do you see it as this bleak tragedy about the endless cycle of violence, or as a dark but transcendent love story finally fulfilled? And what about Aaron's final act in the motel room? Do you view it as justice or as murder? There's a lot to discuss. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, family, and even your enemies. Just please, no psychos. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because every subscriber inches me one step closer to taking over the Galaxies. Until next time, take care, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one.